Hi everybody, welcome back to another lesson in my level 3 beginner piano course. In this video we're going to learn about chromatic scales. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and if you like what you see, give this video a thumbs up. Also, I offer online piano lessons. If you're looking for one, there's going to be information below. So, we have played quite a few scales up until now: C major, G major, A minor, D major, and so on. But there's one thing common in all of those scales, and they're diatonic scales, which means that we have tones and semitones, or whole steps and half steps, alternating after each other. So we don't play every single key. Sometimes we miss out keys. For example, in the C major scale, we miss out all the black keys. In the D major scale, we miss out some of the white keys. A chromatic scale is a scale completely made up of half steps or semitones, and it means that we're going to play every single key in order without leaving any out. And chromatic scales can be easy and hard at the same time. It's easy because you don't need to remember the notes in the scale because they're always the same. It's just every note. And the fingering is quite easy too, because it's going to always use the same fingers on the same note combinations. But what makes them difficult is the constant movement between the thumb and the white black keys, which is quite difficult to make it even and smooth. So let me show you an example of a chromatic scale. This started on C and finished on C. We don't really call this a C chromatic scale. It's still a chromatic scale, and it just happens to start on C. But I could play the same chromatic scale starting on C sharp, and it doesn't make any difference to the scale. It's the same notes but starting on a different note. So for that reason, every chromatic scale is the same, just starting on a different note. Now, in notation, the chromatic scales can have sharps and flats, and it doesn't really matter which one you see. Sometimes you'll see flats, sometimes you'll see sharps. Traditionally, if you go up, if you're ascending, you're going to use sharps, and if you're descending, you're going to use flats. But as long as you have one of each notes in order, none of them twice and none of them missing, it is a chromatic scale. So let's have a look at the fingering of chromatic scales. We're going to have a look at the right hand first. Every single black note is going to be played with number 3. So all the black notes are always played with number 3, and all the white notes are always played with number 1, the thumb. So we go 1, 3, 1, 3. The only exception is when you have two white keys and there is no black in between. So for example, E and F and B and C. In this case, we're going to use 1 and 2, and then moving back to 3 on the black note. So once again, all the black notes need to be played with number 3, all the white notes need to be played with number 1, except when you have the two whites without a black in between. In that case, you're going to play 1 and 2. So let's see this chromatic scale now starting on C. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, and now 2 again. Coming back, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, number 2, because it's two whites. So the only thing you need to really remember is where you have the 1, 2, because the rest is all the same. And that's how simple the fingering is for chromatic scales. Now, in the context of pieces, you'll find sometimes a different fingering, but the standard chromatic scale fingering is what I just showed you here. Now let's see the left hand fingering as well. The same rules apply: 3 on the blacks, 1 on the whites, and 1, 2 when you have no black between the whites, but because the hands are mirrored, it's going to be 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, so no crossing. 1, 3, 1, 3, number 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, number 2, and back. 3, 1, 3, 1, and now 2, 3, 1, 3, 1. So that's about the fingering. Now, what can go wrong in chromatic scales? Just like in any other scale, they can become very uneven. especially when you get to the two wides and you're thinking about which finger needs to go there. So make sure to play it slow enough so that you're going to be able to play it without any hesitations. The second biggest danger is, since we're doing so many crossings, the thumb can get very, very strong, and you need to be careful not to play the thumb too loud compared to number 3, so all the notes roughly have the same volume or loudness. So I'm going to play it now with a very heavy thumb so you can hear it. And that can be very dangerous because the thumb is quite a strong finger compared to number 3, and also it's landing on a lower note. So there's a tendency to really kind of dive into the 1, and don't do that. So nice and even. And if you played chromatic scales for a few weeks every single day, you can try it hands together. The only difficulty hands together is that when you get to the two wides, it's the opposite. Left hand has 2, right hand has 1, and then back to 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, and then left hand has 2, right hand 1. So it's always the mirror of each other. Chromatic scales can be quite fun. You can start on 1 octave on any note. Try to start on many note combinations, because if you start on a black key, you will have to start on number 3. If you start on the two wides, you will need to start with 1, 2, and then 3. So that's about the chromatic scales. You can also do it on the entire piano. And going on and on, challenging yourself to go faster and slower, hands together, up and down in many different forms. Chromatic scales should be a component of your daily practice alongside the major and minor scales.